we do have a news story that we'll probably chat about for a while. I have a feeling there was some. It's from the article I read about it. I got it up here on my thing so I wouldn't forget. It's the outdoornews.com. I think it's your guys' Wisconsin.
Wisconsin Outdoors, yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like there's some. They had a doe test positive for CWD in Buffalo County, Wisconsin.
Oh, that should be
on
interesting.
on the 24th. So what I thought was weird was the guy shot the doe opening day of gun, which was like over a month ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like that's a long time to just now be figuring out it's positive to me. But
Yeah, it takes them a while to test them for some reason.
oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
They usually get your deer about half eaten by the time they tell you it had CWD.
I wouldn't think it would be that. I don't know. It has to be just some type of a swab. I don't know.
They do. I think they actually test the brains.
Yeah.
Because I know they want the head.
Yeah, they take the head off of them, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Do they still in Wisconsin? If you give up your buck, or not give it up, but test it for CWD and it tests positive, and they take the, do they give you another buck tag now?
Yeah, you get to keep the antlers and stuff too, but
right.
They give you another tag, I believe.
I know it used to be like that. I mean,
I'm not positive they still do it, but I know that they were for a while. Yeah.
Have you ever
probably still doing it?
Yeah. Have you ever got one tested or anything?
I only tested them when they forced me to. Otherwise, I refuse.
What years was that? Whenever they were forcing people to test them, you remember?
Geez, it was in the early 2000s when it first came out. When it first came to Wisconsin, they decided they were gonna not just manage it; they were gonna eradicate deer in Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. They were gonna kill every single deer in southern Wisconsin. Think about how stupid that is, and in the task, they literally, when it first came here, they got helicopters. They're shooting them out of helicopters. They're getting snipers. They were shooting them at night with spotlights. They were shooting them over bait piles. They even had a period of time where they gave unlimited tags. You could shoot all the deer you wanted. And then to try to entice you for a while, they did earn a buck, where for every doe that you shot, you got a buck tag. And you could use it either or. So you could build up your buck tags for gun by shooting does with the bow, and vice versa. And I remember people shooting 30 or 40 bucks in 1 year, neighbors and stuff. I mean, we used to have a really, really good population of deer here. Mm-hmm. And to me, it seemed more like the governor we had in charge at that time frame was really interested in knocking the population down. And that was his main goal. And he couldn't do it because in Wisconsin, the hunters run the DNR. They work for us, and we wouldn't allow it. So they were able to use the disease as an excuse to knock the population way down. And they came up with some just extreme laws and stuff, and really kind of hurt our population, in my opinion. I think we had a really good thing going. And obviously the disease didn't do anything like they said it was going to, like we all knew. I mean, a lot of us that were smart enough that have been around the block a few times, knew enough to study this outside of what they were telling us and learn what has happened in other places. And it was pretty obvious that what they were telling us wasn't going to happen. They were alluding to it was going to cross over and affect people, and people were going to get CWD and die. But if you looked into it, in I think it's Colorado, Wyoming, out in West
Colorado,
they had it longer than I've been alive.
And it was I think it started in Colorado, like in the 60s, maybe, or early.
Right, I was born in 67, and I know it started before I was born.
Yeah,
and they have never gone to the point of getting all freaked out about it. And literally thousands and thousands and thousands of people have eaten CWD positive deer, and nobody has ever gotten sick from it.
Mm-hmm.
They actually took people who got a couple people who got one of those brain disease, that whatever it is, something Jacobs disease.
Mm-hmm.
And even though they knew that has nothing to do with CWD, they tried to tie it together and said, these guys ate venison once, and they put it all over the news. And it's like, geez.
Oh my gosh.
Right. I mean, it was pretty horrific. I mean, it was hard to swallow. I mean, you'd see people just killing deer after, well, the DNR wants us to, they'd say, and it was hard. I mean, hard to watch. I mean, when you respect the animals the way I do, it was hard to watch them do that. And it was kind of funny to listen to their analogy, because they said, in order to save the deer in southern Wisconsin, we have to eradicate the deer in southern Wisconsin. How are you saving them?
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, they're doing this research and stuff, and it shows that once CWD is in the soil, it's there forever. So what are you saying? You kill all the deer so that you later on can have a deer population, but you can never bring them back because they'll get CWD. And then you bring this up to them. Well, someday maybe we'll figure out how to fix it and we can bring deer back. It's like, geez. When you look into it, it literally is everywhere they check for it. Every place they do a heavy check for it, they find it. I mean, there's been deer found like roaming in the deserts of Arizona that have CWD, and there wasn't any state anywhere near there for any place, hundreds of miles from there that had CWD. Now, where'd that deer come from? Because it travels in the blood, it travels in the feces, it travels in the dirt. CWD isn't a living thing. It's a prion. It's not alive. So it's indefinite. It doesn't die. You don't kill it. Yeah. It's just always there. And if a deer consumes that, he gets it, right? Mm-hmm. So when you're saying it leaches into the soil and it's all over the soil, and every place these deer get into numbers with CWD, it gets into the soil. All you have to do is sell a roll of sod to some other state, and they got it. All you have to do is drive your truck through a muddy field and then drive it into another state, they got it. Then at the same time, they didn't want to stop sales of deer urine, and the deer farms are what has it. So they spread this deer urine not only across the United States, but they're selling it in Canada, they're selling it in Mexico, they're selling it every place they have whitetails from these deer farms. And until that farm tests positive for CWD, they don't stop those sales. And then once it tests positive, it's already in every country. So they weren't trying to combat it in a way of actually stopping the spread. They were doing it in a way that was just like, we'll kill all the deer and it'll stop. But they weren't doing things that would stop the deer from spread. I mean, just think about a dead deer floats into the Mississippi River. Now,
happens all the time, by the way.
400 miles downstream, they got CWD.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's no stopping this disease. I mean, you want to try to come up with a cure, You want to try to stop it from spreading, as in making rules from not taking it over state borders or county lines. Hey, that's probably a good idea. Yeah. But that disease is spreading everywhere anyways, and you are not stopping it. All you do is slightly slow it down. And they weren't even doing a good job of that. And at the same time, for something that they know they couldn't stop, I mean, they were spending hundreds of millions of dollars just in my home state.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was going to share this. This is the testing information from the actual Wisconsin DNR website here. And, these are the sick deer that they tested for CWD. And you can see, I think since 2002, like this is, I don't know if it's around 300. I added them up earlier, but I can't remember. 383 deer tested positive that they thought had CWD essentially. And then up here's your guys' number. It must have been in like 2002 to 2006, whenever the testing was required. That sound about right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then that time frame, because there's just a drastically more amount of testing done right here than any other years. But I guess to put these numbers in perspective, like I think in Wisconsin, I read that on average every year 19,000 deer get hit by a car and die from car accidents. And like when we're talking about 1,000 deer that these deer didn't even die. They just tested positive, I mean, they probably died from gunshot wounds, but not from CWD. Now these ones, had CWD or had CWD and were sick, but whatever. I don't know. This year there's been 6 of them, and from 2002 to 2011, there was in single digits all those years. So it's just like, golly,
well, in their defense, they're testing a lot less.
Yeah, back then they were testing a lot less sick deer.
Testing more then than they are now. I mean, as far as deer being shot,
yeah.
There was a time when they mandated everybody got their deer tested. I mean, now I don't know too many serious deer hunters who would let them test their deer, because when they test their deer, if it comes back positive, they're going to just murder their county.
Right. It's like 6% of the deer tested, I guess, were positive for CWD, and roughly, you can't really tell exactly how many were actually tested, but it's around 20,000, and around 1,300 were positive in 2019, which that seemed like I don't know. This graph seems weird too, because this bar looks smaller than this one, and there's more tested. But
I mean, they literally had graphs when they first started this that said that if we didn't eradicate all the deer within 5 years, there wouldn't be any deer in Wisconsin. 10 years, there wouldn't be any in the United States. And they had graphs and stuff. And like, here we are, we still got deer, and we didn't do what they said that we had to do.
Right. You don't care if I put what county you're in here, do I? Do you, Dan?
Oh, go ahead. Everybody knows. What is interesting is
what county is it? I can't remember off the top of my head right now.
Jefferson.
I was going to go Jackson. That's what county I'm in, though. Oh yeah, look at that. How many they tested that year in your county?
Yeah, what's interesting is that now they got one they tested in Buffalo County. And what's interesting about that is they're going to get some fighting on that if they try to do something there, because that's all managed land. That's all outfitters. That's big money that's there. So those people are going to fight tooth and nail from having their populations decimated,
Yeah.
That's their livelihood. That county literally is dirt poor except for hunting.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the first positive test in Buffalo County then, right? Yeah.
I believe so, based on
it looks like on this graph they have 0 all across the board, so yeah. I've tried to continually educate myself on the issue of CWD, and it's hard for me to understand that drastic opinion some people have of it as like the end of deer as we know it. I'm like, I don't see it, and I'm fairly open-minded on that kind of stuff.
Worst case scenario, if it's as bad as they say it is, it kills all the deer. But there's no way you're going to stop that. And I don't see that happening, because when I'm looking at populations, you see it get pretty heavy in certain areas. And I have literally scouted properties for people where you find dead deer all over the place in the core of the CWD area in Wisconsin, like around Mount Horeb and stuff. So I've seen it is killing some deer.
Sure.
So it's factual, but it's not killing all of them. And I know there's been some studies that some deer have CWD and live a long time and even breed and everything else.
And I guess I get it. Like at the beginning of all this, maybe being a little bit like, maybe we should do something. And then, but it's like after 20 years, it's like, we got a pretty good amount of information about it now that we've didn't have back then. Maybe, I don't know, maybe we did have it back then. And
it's a lot of it's politics,
Yeah.
Look at the seriousness of CWD. It's so serious that when we as hunters shoot a deer, we can't dispose of any bones or anything in the garbage. We can't throw them out in the backyard. They have to be disposed of in a certain way legally, because they're considered hazardous material, right? However, at the same time frame, they stopped picking up roadkill deer because it got too expensive to dispose of them the proper way. So you're supposed to just leave them decompose on your lawn or wherever they die in the same areas.
Yeah.
It's okay to do that. You just can't do that with one you shot. you can't throw the bones in your
Yeah.
yard, or you can't, like some people like to cut them up in the field and take them out, take the meat out.
Yeah.
You can't leave one piece of bone out there, or
Mhm. Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of contradicting rules and stuff that have come about from it.
Right.
In Indiana, we don't have. I mean, knock on wood, we never had too many issues with it.
They had a
Whereas,
woman who did a study one time. She was contracted by the DNR. She was a biologist to do a study to prove that lowering the deer numbers would lower the progression of CWD, to prove to the hunters that lowering the number would help.
yeah,
So she did this study, and it actually found the exact opposite. It found that when she lowered the numbers, the bucks would expand their home ranges to look for does.
mm,
So they would go from a small core area in a large population to a very large area moving around. And it actually, the bucks were the main carriers of CWD. Now does get
yeah,
it, but bucks get it much more prevalent than does for some reason. And they would increase their home range dramatically and spread the disease further faster. And her graphs showed that, and they hid that document and fired her.
really.
Mm-hmm. And all she did was release what the study showed that they asked her to do.
I have heard people like whatever CWD experts say that you should on your farms shoot the small bucks because they are the main carriers of the disease because they tend to travel farther and whatever, their home range is bigger and specifically the small bucks,
So when the draconian liberal governor we had that started the kill 'em all thing,
Mm-hmm.
he finally got voted out in the middle of it, and Scott
Mm-hmm.
Walker got voted in. Scott Walker tried to make him use a little more reason
Yeah.
and start thinking about the disease a little better, and he forced them to work with the people, the hunters,
Yeah.
and he made them make a board. He mandated that they had to have this, I think they call it CDAC board,
Mm-hmm.
and invite people from the public in to oversee what the DNR was doing. And I remember they put this thing out. They wanted people that were like leaders in their community in the deer world, like a farmer who's a big, like, runs the farming commission or whatever. They wanted a deer hunter who was like well known in the hunting industry. I remember it even stating like on social media, on and our biologist asked me if I'd be interested in that. We had a meeting in town here, and we were talking about CWD because I was really a strong opponent of what was going on. And the biologist I felt that we had at that time agreed with me, but his hands were tied. And we'd have discussions about it. And he had some pull. Him and the warden at the time both recommended me for that position. And it was turned down. They took some nobody. And it turns out, in my opinion, and I really believe this, they were cherry picking who they put on that CDAC board to people that would go along with whatever they told them to do. Like they would tell these guys, because we got some CDAC board members that are on my forum, and I'd get in arguments with them. They would tell me that, well, the only thing I can choose is kill more deer this way or kill more deer that way. I'm like, that ain't why Scott put you on that board. He made that board for you to oversee what they're doing, not to choose kill more deer by having a doe season or kill more deer by, having an extended season. You're supposed to have some decisions in there, but that's what they were doing, is they would cherry pick the people that oversee them. And that's been, we've had some talks about this in the past with other things, like them selling off our hunting property.
Mm-hmm.
They don't got no right to do that. They can sell properties, but they have to have the okay of the people. We're their boss.
Yeah.
There's no meetings about it or anything. They do it in the shadow of darkness. And when you question them, they stop answering your questions. It was the same thing with CWD.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in Buffalo County. Cause like you said, there's that place is just full of outfitters and property managers essentially. And
When you
That's not
get
going to.
people that are are controlling millions of dollars of property and literally hundreds of thousands of dollars of trophy hunts a year, and they're being told they're going to get their deer demolished, their deer herd demolished, and they're not going to have a choice, they're going to get some kickback. They're going to get lawyers sick down. I mean, you wouldn't get that out of a county like I'm in. It's just a bunch of cornfields, and some swamps. But in Buffalo County, if they start pushing their weight around, they're going to get some kickback for sure, I think.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's better now, though? Do you think maybe it won't be as big a deal as what it would have been back then?
I do. I do think that that to some degree, the people that were really draconian about it are gone,
Yeah.
and some of the ones that are still there have that were kind of into belief that this is the end all disease. Have kind of seen that it's not. I mean, time has passed and it hasn't
Right.
killed deer, and they're kind of starting to understand that. Yeah, maybe this was wrong. But I still think that they want to manage it, and I do agree they should manage it. They should
Right.
try to go in there and do some things about it and try to solve some things and try to come up with some solutions. But I think just this all of a sudden kill all the deer things, I don't want to see that ever come back.
What do you think about all like the? I was kind of glancing at some of the comments about the bait banning and all that. Do you think that does anything at all, or is that just like another thing to? And I don't want. I'm not talking about like I don't want any opinions about like if it should be legal or not for deer. I mean,
right. I get you, just for disease wise.
Yeah.
And I do think there's a little bit to it. Now, personally, what you didn't want to hear is that I think if some old guy wants to bait, he should be able to bait.
Yeah.
But from the disease standpoint, if a deer eats out of a pile of corn that's in a pile, and another deer comes and eats where this thing was drooling, and he touches that CWD, he's going to get CWD.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, I agree. I mean, they could make you spread the bait out so it's not in one spot where a deer's eating out of the same pile or something. They could do some things. Yeah. But I do believe that if you're putting bait in a pile, that you could be spreading the disease. Yeah.
Yeah. But the problem is, it's like they're going to spread it anyway. Like they just licked a branch that every deer in the woods is licked, 2 minutes ago before they went over to the corn pile. It's just like you're not, like you probably just said, you're not going to stop it by doing that.
Yeah, I did some pretty heavy studying on it, and there's some pretty unique things about CWD. One of the things was that 24% of the population has an immunity to it. Now, it's not 100% immunity, but they have some sort of genetic immunity to it where it's a lot harder for them to get the disease. Mm-hmm. And that's where killing all the deer is not a good thing, because that 24% could genetically start taking over and overcome the disease, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So what they learned about that is in Penn studies that the 24% that had a genetic disposure, they wouldn't get the disease unless it was really exposed to them heavily, which in a natural, like wild arena, I don't think happens too often.
Yeah.
Kind of like somebody, like some people have they just, somebody sneezes 3 doors down and they get the flu, right? And some people can walk in with somebody with a flu and hang with them, make out with them, eat the same sandwich, and they don't get it.
Yeah. Yep. I don't know. I think, it just seems like to me it was just an unknown factor for a while that got way blown out of proportion, and now it's just like it's a bunch of people that don't want to admit that they were, probably didn't go about it the right way, and now here we are still kind of talking about it every now and again. But
yeah, I don't want to talk too harsh about them. I mean, I want to see what they do about it before I say too much. But
yeah,
it is different people working in there. So
yep. I'm with you though. Like, I think it's something you got everybody, like every year when you keep an eye on it and just make sure it doesn't start to do something crazy. But
so what was that number that you quoted earlier? I think it was before we were even live. $70 million Wisconsin spent.
Yeah, that was from a Ted Nugent clip I watched on YouTube. He said $70 million was spent in Wisconsin. And like every time I've heard anybody talk about CWD, they are always referring to what Wisconsin did.
Right.
As a
And what they
case
don't
study.
realize is Wisconsin was, at the time that Wisconsin did all those things and spent all that money,
Yeah.
our governor had a side job working for the auto insurance company.
Yeah.
And he was driven to stop deer accidents, which is huge in Wisconsin, right?
Yeah.
You know where he works now? He didn't even run again. He's got a cushy job at that auto insurance company. He doesn't even
Oh.
show up for work. He just gets paid a commission. So
Hmm.
something went on there. But $70 million, and really absolutely nothing has changed with CWD.
Yeah.
Not one thing.
Yeah. This was I don't know. Ted Nugent was on. It was a Michigan Great Outdoors show, and he was on there talking about it, and they were going through the kind of the same thing in Michigan, and he was referring to Wisconsin a whole bunch, using them as kind of a case study of what you all did back then. But he's been on Joe Rogan too and talked about it in great lengths because Joe's had other people that are kind of on the other side of the argument for controlling CWD on his show, and Ted was kind of the opposite view. But it's a topic that people seem like they're very on one side or the other on. But I don't know. I seem like at least the people I talk to in the deer hunting world, I haven't yet to find too many people that are super worried about it. So,
Yeah, they had that fear factor going on with if you eat it, you could die.
yeah.
And we have to do something before it could genetically change and suddenly start killing people, is what they would say, right?
Yeah.
And it was funny. And I made a statement back then, and I said, one of them DNR guys said to me, so you would eat a deer that's sick? I'm like, I probably wouldn't intentionally eat a deer that's sick. And he was like, aha. And I'm like, well, I'd eat a sick deer before I would, like lick a rabid bat, and you don't do nothing about rabies. And that's actually killing people.
Yeah.
That's a disease that actually kills people. You're going to kill every raccoon and every skunk and every rabbit and every squirrel and every fox in the state. The method of killing everything to save everything was just stupid.
Yeah. And like, I don't know if it's going to eventually kill every deer in the United States, killing them all right now. I don't know if that's,
yeah, that's how you
it's like, why don't you just let us prolong it a little bit if it's going to do it anyway,
I don't know if that guy was related to Hitler that came up with that or what.
And I know, like I used to work in the poultry industry, and when they would get us like avian influenza, you would depopulate them, but you could also like kill that in a chicken house because it's a controlled environment. You could go in and sanitize it, heat it up, kill the disease, take out all the manure, clean all. You could get rid of the disease because it's literally in a box.
Right.
But like to your point, you can't clean the dirt or the cornfield out in the farmer's cornfield. But
right, literally, if you got to remember too that you can't digest a prion.
Yeah.
Right. So if a coyote, a wolf, or catch this, a vulture or an eagle that flies hundreds of miles, eats the stuff, flies over another state and craps, they now got CWD.
Right.
Because you can't digest it, you can't kill it. They had a farm where the deer got CWD. They killed all the deer in it. They burnt the ground, brought deer in there. They got CWD. So then they took and they bleached the ground. They bleached it. They burned it. They let it sit for like 10 years. Brought deer back in, and as soon as they brought the deer in, deer immediately got CWD.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I'm all for coming up with a cure for it or something like that if it's even possible.
Right.
But killing all the deer isn't curing it.
Right.
It's just killing the ones that also got a disposition to survive through it.
Right.
It'd be like if COVID came in, they killed everybody because they wanted to save us all from COVID, so they just kill everybody.
Yeah, people have a little different opinion about it. I think if that was the solution, right?
Right.
Hey everybody, if you like the channel, make sure you subscribe right here. And if you like the clips, I got 2 more options for you. 2 options right here. Subscribe right here. See you guys.